Welcome back to my Chanel. In the hum of a quiet afternoon, tucked into the folds of an old wallet resting in a forgotten drawer, lies a coin that has traveled farther than most people ever will. It has slipped between fingers during late-night diner runs, clicked against others in the palm of a cashier, and waited patiently in the bottom of a jeans pocket for its next chance to be spent. It is small, barely noticed, and often passed over in favor of flashier coins. But not this time. Not this dime, struck in the year 1994, this particular 10-cent piece was born in a world in transition. The internet was just starting to hum with potential. Cell phones were clunky and rare. A gallon of gas cost little more than $1, and people still paid with cash more often than not. That year, billions of coins were pressed, packaged, and sent into circulation, carrying with them the silent echoes of an evolving America. On its face, the 1994 dime bears a portrait as familiar as the sky itself: Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 32nd President of the United States, whose leadership through the Great Depression and World War II left a legacy etched not just in textbooks, but in the very currency we carry. His profile faces left, stoic and thoughtful, and it has remained unchanged since the design's first minting in 1946, the year after his death. There is something timeless about the Roosevelt dime. Its design is simple, elegant, and purposeful. On the reverse, a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch. Symbols of liberty, peace, and strength, ideals that Roosevelt himself fought for. And though millions of these dimes were minted in 1994, not all were created equal. Some were struck in Philadelphia, bearing the subtle P. Others in Denver, marked with a bold D. A select few were minted in San Francisco as proof coins, pristine and mirror-like, crafted for collectors rather than cash registers. The vast majority of these dimes faded quietly into everyday life. They jingled in vending machines, disappeared into couch cushions, and were forgotten as time marched on. But among them, hidden in plain sight, there was just one that was unlike the rest. The IT didn't shout its rarity. It bore no dramatic errors or doubled features to give itself away. What made this particular 1994 dime remarkable wasn't what was wrong with it, but what was exactly, impossibly right. Every contour of Roosevelt's face was razor-sharp, as if frozen in time. The lettering was flawless, untouched by wear or distortion. The coin shimmered with a brilliance not often seen outside the highest levels of mint preservation. Collectors have a term for such a coin: a near-perfect strike. This 1994 dime was graded as MS69, an almost unreachable score in the world of numismatics. It represented not just survival, but perfection against the odds, against the friction of hands and time. Where others were marred by scratches, flattened features, and microscopic nicks, this dime remained untouched, like a memory preserved in silver. It sat quietly for years, shielded from the world, its luster hidden from those who would never think to look. And yet, those who know, those who truly understand coins, could feel its presence. Like a buried artifact waiting to be unearthed, it drew attention in whispers. Not because of fanfare, but because of purity. The mystique of this coin didn't grow from accidents or errors. It grew from excellence. It was a reminder that even among billions, perfection could emerge. And in its small, reflective surface was a story not just of Roosevelt or of 1994, but of America itself. Of resilience. Of the beauty in ordinary things. Of a country constantly pressing forward, one coin at a time. And so, as time has revealed its rarity and its unmatched preservation, collectors have come to recognize its true value not just in sentiment or history, but in tangible worth, because this 1994 dime, though born to be spent, now rests in a place of honor. And its value, $106,000. In the quiet hum of an American summer, 1981 moved through its months with a blend of nostalgia and innovation. Ronald Reagan had just taken office, MTV was on the verge of redefining entertainment, and personal computers were inching their way into suburban homes. Amid the cultural shifts, another moment was unfolding, one that most never noticed. It happened in the palm of a hand, the jingle of pocket change, the brief exchange at a gas station counter. A coin was minted. Small, silver, and unassuming, a one-dime coin that would one day captivate collectors and historians alike. To the average eye, it looked like any other 10-cent piece. It bore the familiar profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt, sharp and stately, facing left, forever cast in solemn reflection. The word liberty arched over his head, and "I in God we trust" sat steadfast beside him, a statement and a promise. Beneath it, the date, 1981. Just another coin in a long line of Roosevelts since 1946, or so it seemed, but the story of this particular dime doesn't start and end with its face. Its tale is one of mystery, of subtle differences that most never see, of secrets held in metal. It's a story about how something so ordinary can become something extraordinary when the right eyes find it. Back in 1981, three major U.S. mint facilities were busy striking coins for circulation: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each had its quirks, its pace, and its tools. Philadelphia struck the majority of coins for general use, and their dimes typically came with no mint mark. Denver's dimes bore the telltale D, and San Francisco, known primarily for proof coinage, carefully minted the finest versions, polished and pristine, often for collectors. This year was unique for many reasons. Tensions around the economy influenced everything from metal sourcing to minting decisions. Inflation was rising. Silver, long gone from dimes since 1965, was now a nostalgic memory. Copper-nickel was the standard, sturdy, serviceable, and practical. The blank planchets rolled down conveyor belts, polished and prepped, while dies, painstakingly engraved, waited to strike history into them. But not all coins are created equal. Somewhere in the controlled chaos of the minting floors, tiny anomalies began to appear. A faint doubling on the letters. A missing mint mark. A coin struck ever so slightly off-center. At the time, no one batted an eye. It wasn't uncommon. But decades later, in the homes of eagle-eyed collectors, under the magnifying glass, these tiny imperfections would become the stars of the story. One such coin, a 1981 dime, held a secret no one recognized at the time. Unlike its siblings, this coin would eventually surface not as just another Roosevelt dime, but as a silent treasure, hiding in plain sight. The year wore on. Coins came and went, pockets filled and emptied. No one imagined that a simple dime, a coin that could buy you a phone call back then, would someday be whispered about in numismatic circles. Whispers turned into conversations, and conversations into hunts. Because someone, somewhere, noticed something unusual, they held the 1981 dime under a jeweler's loupe. They noticed how crisp the details were, how the ridge, known as the reeded edge, felt ever so slightly more defined. They compared the strike, the luster, the tiniest elements, and realized this wasn't a dime like the rest. It was a unicorn. The more they looked, the clearer it became. This coin had a pedigree. It had been struck not once, but twice. The doubling was there, faint, but undeniable. A minting error, yes, but not a flaw. A gift. This was no ordinary coin. This was the kind that finds its way into history books, the kind that turns quiet collectors into legends. It was as if fate had chosen one dime in millions, perhaps billions, to wear a crown of rarity. Over the years, more collectors joined the hunt. Coin shows saw men and women hunched over tables, sleeves rolled, eyes sharp, hearts pounding. Dealers brought out their trays of coins, casual and calm, while watchers leaned in, hoping, praying. Somewhere, among all the copper-nickel clinks, someone found another 1981 dime and another. Not many, but enough to stir the water, to make waves soon. These special dimes earned nicknames: the Bold Dime, the Ghost of 81, the Doubled Roosevelt. Articles were written. Forums buzzed. YouTube channels started telling the tale, luring in more seekers, more dreamers, and every story added a little more magic to the coin. Its fame wasn't instant. It was built, earned, one collector at a time, one discovery after another. Because for every 1,000 dimes minted that year, only a whisper of them bore the traits that would turn them into gold mines. For those who noticed, the thrill wasn't just in the ownership. It was in the chase. The journey. The idea that one might, just maybe, find something priceless hiding in a forgotten coin jar. Children searched their parents' change. Grandparents told stories of old coins they once tucked into drawers and forgot. And for some, the lucky few, that forgotten drawer held a 1981 dime worth far more than 10 cents. As this story continues, we'll dive deeper into how these coins were minted, what set them apart, and why their errors were so rare. We'll meet the collectors who uncovered them, the specialists who authenticated them, and the quiet thrill of holding one in your hand. But before we reach the final chapter, before we reveal the coin's true worth, remember this: sometimes the most incredible treasures in life aren't flashy or grand. Sometimes, they're no bigger than a dime, waiting patiently in a pocket, for someone to finally see them for what they really are. The year was 2010, a time of quiet recovery and uncertain optimism. The world was still catching its breath from the financial storm of the previous years. People were rebuilding, reimagining, trying to find normal again. In the heart of everyday America, life ticked forward one heartbeat at a time, through school bell rings, car engine starts, coffee brews, and the soft chime of coins dropped into vending machines. It was in one of those overlooked, habitual moments that something rare slipped quietly into existence. Amid the whir of machines and the steady hands of U.S. mint technicians, a small coin was born, a dime. just 10 cents. Light, thin, easy to miss. Yet this particular coin would carry with it a legacy few could imagine. A 2010 Roosevelt dime, minted like millions of others, but destined to stand apart. At first glance, it looked just like every other dime minted for decades. The left-facing profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, etched with dignity and depth, his gaze thoughtful, his presence solemn. The word liberty curved above his brow like a silent anthem. Below, the quietly defiant "I in God we trust." The year, 2010, crisp, definitive, set in place as if to say, this is now, this is history. But sometimes, the most important things about a coin aren't visible at a glance. Sometimes they live in the subtleties. The tiniest overstrike. A shadowed line. A piece of the puzzle missing, or one too many. It's in those imperfections, those whispers in metal, that legends are born. The US Mint that year was busy, as always. Coins were being struck in vast numbers at Philadelphia and Denver, two of the nation's central mints. San Francisco focused on proof coinage, mirror finish pieces made for collectors. All three operated with precision. The dimes rolled off assembly lines at speed, landing by the thousands in bins, trays, and coin bags. Most would live forgettable lives in registers, laundromats, couch cushions, but a small number, a chosen few, would leave the mint not quite like the others. It began with a quiet rumor. A collector somewhere had noticed something strange. A dime that felt different in hand. It looked brighter. The texture of the edge seemed sharper. The relief, that three-dimensional sculpted quality, stood out more dramatically. It was the kind of difference that a casual glance would miss. But to trained eyes, it was something special. 1 dime turned to 2. Then 3. And the whispers grew louder. Experts began to weigh in. They spotted minted doubling on Roosevelt's profile. Others noticed missing or faint mint marks, or subtle die clashes that weren't supposed to be there. It was as if the mint, just for a fleeting moment in 2010, had produced something extraordinary by accident, a fluke in the system that gave birth to a modern marvel. The dime, a coin often overlooked, suddenly had the spotlight. Collectors began searching their stashes, their change jars, their rolls of coins picked up from banks. They examined them with magnifiers, studied the ridges, the font spacing, the angles of the letters. Some compared hundreds of dimes before finding one that made them pause. It wasn't about luck anymore, it was about knowing what to look for. And for those who did, the payoff was astonishing. This particular 2010 dime became known among the community not just as a collectible, but as a ghost, a phantom coin that hid among the ordinary, revealing itself only to the patient and the passionate. Some called it the Phantom Strike. Others simply whispered about it in forums and late-night conversations, guarding their discoveries with care. But this wasn't just about rarity. It was about beauty, the unintentional artistry in a coin struck ever so slightly out of line, or with a doubled die that turned Roosevelt's profile into a shadowed echo of itself. These were the mistakes that made a coin perfect in the eyes of collectors. Each anomaly told a story, of a die worn too long, or a hubbing error missed in the rush, or a mint worker's fatigue after a long shift. Human moments, etched forever in metal. As more coins were discovered, specialists cataloged them. Grading services authenticated them. Word spread, not just among numismatists, but among everyday people. Suddenly, coin collecting didn't feel like something reserved for hobbyists in backrooms. It felt alive. Accessible. Anyone could stumble across a dime worth more than a new car. There were stories of retirees discovering one in an old coffee tin, or teenagers finding a gem in their lunch money. Some coins passed hands silently, their true worth unknown to the untrained eye. Others were guarded, encased in plastic, labeled, revered. Their value wasn't just in their error, but in their story, the story of a nation, of a minting moment, of a mistake that became a masterpiece. And it's not just collectors who are drawn to them. Historians, too, see these coins as snapshots of a moment in American life, not just a piece of metal, but a timestamp. The 2010 dime speaks of a country in transition. Of modern minting technology still prone to human nuance. Of beauty and imperfection, and so the legend of the 2010 Roosevelt dime grows. Through this journey, we'll trace its origins, hear from those who found one in the wild, and explore the delicate balance between chance and fate. We'll look at how the coin was designed, why Roosevelt's image still graces our dimes all these decades later, and how the tiniest variations in metal and strike turned a coin worth 10 cents into a priceless artifact. And when we finally arrive at the end of this tale, when we reach the heart of the mystery, we'll discover just how far a dime can go, because this unassuming little coin, born of copper and nickel, struck during a time when most weren't paying attention, now holds a value far greater than anyone could have imagined. A value not of cents, or even dollars, but a staggering, jaw-dropping $117,000.